Hi, my name is Danielle, and I'm the president of TED Ed Club this year. So first and foremost, welcome to the 2020 to 2021 TED Ed events. Before we, first, I would like to thank everyone here for coming to this event. I know with all restrictions and stuff, but thank you for making your time to be here. This year we have 7 students who will be talking on diverse topics ranging from climate change to self-love. I want to take some time out to thank all of them for all of their hard works in the past 8 months. We know it's been a very challenging year, and I'm so proud of their resiliency, patience, and all the work they have put into their speech, and I'm so proud of them. And I know that you'll be amazed of their passion and the depth of their knowledge. So now, before we start, I would like to welcome Dr. Estrada. He's the advisor of the TED Ed Clubs.
Thank you, Danielle. Hello, everyone. Parents, friends, thank you so much for coming. Ms. Crane, Mr. Pop, Senora Mata, thank you for coming to support our students. And this year has been a challenging one, but we thought it was important to have the TED event, even if we will not have a big crowd. We wanted to have it done in a safe way. But it was very important to have 7 students deliver the talks, because every year we have a big group of students who join TED Club, and then by the end of the year there are only a few who actually make it possible. And their determination and their passion is what makes them be here and what will make this event a memorable one. So I hope that you enjoy the talks. And this is what TED Ed Club is about. We just want to support the students in discovering, researching, exploring, and presenting their big ideas in the form of short TED-style talks. And that's what we will have today, short TED-style talks. Because we have a small audience and we are spread out, the speakers will remove their masks so that they can deliver their speeches without a mask. So let's give them a round of applause.
And now, please welcome Ian to the stage. He'll be our first speaker for today.
Thank you. Yeah, I think my mic is working. All right. So hi, my name is Ian, and today I'll be talking to you about climate change. All right. So first, I would like to invite everyone to close their eyes. Imagine yourself in a forest. Tall trees and vibrant plants almost overwhelm your eyes. You hear birds chirping and the soft rustling sound that comes from a slow wind that's passing through the grass. Now, please open your eyes. For almost everyone, being outdoors is a pleasant experience. Sadly, that experience is at risk of disappearing. Nature is at risk of disappearing because of climate change. And if we don't act now, then it will be too late. So today, I'm going to be talking about the evidence of climate change happening, the causes of climate change, and the impact of climate change on our planet. So climate change is kind of like a big asteroid. Oh, well, that was supposed to be my first slide. But climate change is kind of like a big asteroid. The problem is a very pressing and urgent one, but we're either not aware of it or turn our heads to it. And that's a problem. If we don't stop this asteroid, then the problem gets bigger, and then the problem will get too big to handle. As we wait, the problem will get too big to handle. This is the same case with climate change. If we wait too long to deal with a problem that has this much importance, then we won't be able to solve it. So each year, there is more and more evidence on why and how climate change is happening. Since the past few decades, the global average temperature has steadily been rising. As you can see in this graph, the global temperature anomaly has been rising. This kind of means that the asteroid is getting closer and closer to us. Because of this, the ocean's temperature has also been rising by about 0.6 degrees Fahrenheit. But you may ask yourself, or you may ask me, why is that a problem? I mean, 0.6 degrees isn't that much. But actually, it's killed off many coral reefs, as you can see in this before and after image. Carbon dioxide levels, on the other hand, have also been rising explosively. In this graph, you can see that for millennia, atmospheric carbon dioxide has never been above the line up there that I can't reach. But ever since 1950, the levels have skyrocketed. I mean, it is a vertical line. So that's not good. And this basically is more evidence towards the asteroid is coming closer to us. And this evidence is compelling. Something is causing our oceans to warm and our carbon dioxide levels to skyrocket. Now, unfortunately, the cause is us. Greenhouse gases such as CO2 and methane trap heat within the atmosphere, which in turn causes climate change. By burning fossil fuels and natural gases, we have been emitting greenhouse gases into the atmosphere since the start of the Industrial Revolution. A large chunk of these greenhouse gases actually comes from livestock farming, especially cows. And that's probably not what you might have expected. But actually, cows produce methane. And the methane that they create contributes to a whopping 15% of total greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. Now, let me introduce you to another main contributor of climate change: refrigerators and air conditioning. Now, that's also kind of surprising. But the refrigerants that they create are 1,000 to 9,000 times more potent as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. Fortunately, there's already a law that stops, or that ensures, the safe disposal of these refrigerants. So the big question is, what can we do in order to solve this? Well, to reduce climate change, we have to switch to renewable energy. For example, solar panels are a popular option with its relatively cheap installment fee and its potential to even make profits. Finally, by 2030, we have to make sure that we are net zero emissions, or else heat waves, floods, and droughts will worsen. Currently, climate change is one of the biggest problems that we face, that humanity faces. It has the potential to completely change our lives. In fact, if we don't solve this problem, we might have to wear masks in order to combat the poor air quality. Now, you and I don't really like wearing masks. I mean, especially me. I am not that big of a fan of it. But in the future, we might have to for the rest of our lives if we don't solve this problem. So just by being aware of climate change and recycling and limiting your AC use and turning off the lights when you don't need them, you can make a positive impact. And if everyone did this, we could finally stop that asteroid. And one of the biggest problems to us will be solved. As you can see, asteroid picture. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. And next, please welcome Michelle.
Hi guys, my name is Vishal, and today I would like to inform you guys about why we need to switch to renewable energy solutions. In our everyday life, we deal with problems on a small and a large scale. However, the biggest problem that faces all of us is climate change, as its effects on our daily lives will be immeasurable. On a minor scale, as our previous speaker noted, we may have to wear masks or limit our energy consumption. But on a larger scale, we may have to deal with more powerful natural disasters caused by man-made climate change. That is why I would like to inform you about why we need to switch to alternative energy sources. First of all, I would love to talk about the potential benefits of doing so. In the Stockholm Institute of Energy, they created a long-range energy alternative planning system, or LEAP for short, which helped calculate that in many countries, first world countries I should say, such as China, when fully renewable, they could cut their carbon emissions down by 35.8 billion tons of CO2, and they could also provide and supply the energy needed to meet the energy demands of their citizens effectively. Furthermore, the World Wildlife Fund actually stated on this research that this could help protect some of the animals, and if China did so, they could also help produce enough energy to power the entire continent of Africa. Now some of you might be wondering, aren't we all these benefits of renewable energies? What are the current solutions? One person who's taken action into their own hands is Elon Musk. Due to his rapid innovation and spread of the use of his electric cars, such as the Tesla Model S, 3, X, and Y, and the Roadster, which you see here, and also because of his rapid expansion of the supercharger network. These all curb carbon emissions because electric cars require 3 less tons of CO2 produced for every car produced, and in essence, reducing their carbon emissions, and also because many of these supercharger networks, which is cars are powered by, use renewable energy as their fuel source. What Elon Musk shows us is that within 20 years, at least for his company, Tesla, he's been able to achieve nationwide rollout of the supercharger network and also a nationwide rollout of all his cars, as Tesla cars are very ubiquitous in our everyday life. However, there are also some alternative energy solutions I would like to talk about. The first are the basics, like the renewables such as solar, wind, and hydroelectric power sources. These are very common, and they're being heavily invested by the US government, and they're already widespread in use. Like I already cited Tesla, they are offering in-home solar installations on the roof, and these are commonly used across the United States. However, the better solution, at least in my opinion, albeit less talked about, is nuclear energy. Nuclear energy is clean, safe, and effective. A great example of why nuclear energy is so beneficial is because of what its effect is on France. France gets over 70% of their power through nuclear energy, but they're able to do so without having to create mass pollutants such as other countries like China or India. And they're also extremely effective and easy to build, as China is building one every 2 to 3 months, potentially building hundreds of thousands within the next few decades. And the US might get its first one very recently. However, whenever you hear the words nuclear energy, it's not always these positive things such as the ability to provide clean energy that comes to mind. It's always these disasters like Chernobyl or Fukushima, which happened in Japan. However, these disasters commonly occur not because of the nuclear power plants being inherently dangerous, but rather because they were mismanaged, and during the time when Chernobyl was built, the USSR was under huge financial strain, so they couldn't build it right, which led to the failure of the system. Furthermore, another argument that skeptics love to bring up is that going renewable is too difficult. However, this is simply not true. If we all look at our pockets, we all have a phone. However, if we turn the clock back around 20 years ago, for roughly the same price of new phones today, we could only afford a roughly Nokia phone, which is to say a flip phone which can only offer a calling capacity. However, for roughly the same price today, we can now afford phones that can give face unlock, Bluetooth, and a myriad of other capabilities that make the phones of 20 years ago seem ancient. And this trend, also known as economies of scale, has already applied towards renewable energy. According to the US Department of Energy, the cost per watt for solar has already met coal and is already outperforming coal, showing that it's not that expensive or difficult to implement renewable energy. Suppose we do not follow these rules or suggestions. Then our future generations will have a dire future ahead of them. Just a little over 2 months ago, we all endured a brutal winter snowstorm, which left the average Texan around 49 hours without power, with a plethora of burst pipes, and some people even died due to this brutal natural disaster. If we do not take these actions, climate change will just get worse and worse and create more powerful natural disasters. So imagine a worse version of Hurricane Harvey or Irma. And so governments already have all the resources they need to stop climate change. They have the ability to direct billions of dollars towards investments for climate change solutions. They have the ability to join multinational agreements like the Paris Peace Accords, which the current administration has done. And they have the ability to take dedicated scientists to help create solutions for these pressing problems. Let us learn to recognize these warning signs so we can seize to protect our most valuable possession, the environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, we will have Vijay, and we'll begin on his topic on self-love and finding identification.
I'm Vijay. My topic is paper mirrors and paper windows. For as long as I can remember, I've always loved stories. Stories that you can relate to, stories that draw you in, stories that teach you something new. Growing up in Australia, a lot of the stories I had in movies, books, and in TV shows came from overseas. And a lot of them from America. So in first grade, when I found out my parents and I were going to be moving to the States, that was exciting. To be in the middle of all that storytelling was thrilling. But when I started showing up at my new local library, I was kind of taken aback. Instead of the melting pot of cultures and stories I thought I'd find, I only found the same stories I had in Australia. They no longer grabbed me, because in that time I had changed. What I needed, and what I didn't see, were stories that reflected me. That's what I'd like to talk about this afternoon. On the board behind me is a phrase that I've been thinking about a lot since I first heard it a few months ago. Paper mirrors. And a paper mirror works a lot like a glass one, except for medium. Whether it's in books, movies, or a comic book, paper mirrors reflect an aspect of ourselves onto the page, either physically, psychologically, or emotionally. An educator by the name of Emily Stahl came up with this term in the 1980s. She argued that especially for children, having the media you consume reflect you is important for forming a sense of self-identity and image. When you see who you are reflected in what you read or see, it validates who you are. Paper mirrors reinforce your sense of identity. I found my first paper mirror during that period of looking for books at my local library and not finding anything. My younger brother was obsessed with the Leonardo DiCaprio Titanic movie, and he'd rushed to the back of the library every time we visited to pick out the visual dictionary. I followed him back there one day, and I found my first paper mirror in the back of the film book, the Australian actor Hugh Jackman. And though Hugh was playing a Canadian wolfman with knives for hands, I was drawn to his portrayal of the Wolverine. He was an Australian like me, someone that I could see and someone that I could connect to. And that did wonders for me as a kid. And as great as that was, Hugh Jackman really only reflected a small part of who I was, my nationality. Hugh, as far as I could tell, hadn't travelled across the world and left his friends and family behind at an age before he could understand that kind of thing. So in this regard, the paper mirror that I'd found was kind of limited, which tends to be the case. I'm sure not all of you can relate to, say, Harry Potter or Katniss Evergreen in every aspect. Which brings me to the second half of this topic, because Emily Stahl proposed a second half to her metaphor on media. The paper window. And where the mirror reflects and reinforces self-identity and image, The window shows you a new perspective, a new view outside of a metaphorical window. These can be found in all sorts of forms of media, just like the mirror. But unlike the mirror, paper windows are more commonly found in non-fiction sources. A good example of this, one that I've always been drawn to, is the blog Humans in New York by Brandon Stanton, a photographer who walks around and interviews random people off the streets of New York City. He always provides small bite-sized quotes or stories from the people, and each one's a window into their lives, a new paper window. There's a beauty to paper windows. Not only do you learn things from them, but you grow as a result. Across many of the windows that I've found, simple faces or places that I've connected to, there have been elements of stories that I couldn't connect to, usually because I hadn't had the same life experiences as others. But I found, like the Hugh Jackman example, at least one trait, or one characteristic that I could connect to, and the rest I was able to learn from. Paper windows and paper mirrors, though they might seem like opposites, actually train your brain in the same way, to find points of connections and build relationships from what you learn. This is why choosing what media you consume is so important. As Emily Stile found, when kids grow up with a single story, a single kind of viewpoint, their worldview and sense of the world around them doesn't round out and develop in the same way as others. The point of the metaphor of the paper window and mirror is to choose forms of media that you can connect to and also learn from. As a kid, I would have loved to have seen stories that reflected mine, with characters that were smart and funny, and also trying to wrap their head around living in a country that was completely different from anything they could remember. What I invite you to do is to find a balance of both in your life, of both mirrors and windows, and to build a sort of metaphorical bookshelf of media. Find your mirrors. They're your role models, your idols, the people you look up to. But find your windows too, because it's through new perspectives that we learn. And as you build this bookshelf of media, fill it with as many windows and mirrors as you can. The more and the more diverse, the better. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay. And now please welcome Maurice. She will be talking about her discovery with mindfulness.
Hi, as Danielle said, my name is Maurice Fessier, and today I'm going to be talking to you about self-love. You might be wondering, what do you know about self-love? And the truth is, I'm still learning. But I'm here today to tell you about the importance of self-love, and to remind you that you can't effectively love others if you don't love yourself. I recently began practicing and preaching self-love. The spring of my 8th grade year and the beginning of 2019 is when I realized how much I was allowing society to tell me how to be, and that I wasn't good enough the way I was. I realized that self-love is a choice. I chose to love myself, and I chose to accept myself, and you can make that choice too. My journey to self-love began with a rather insignificant moment that felt very significant at the time. The summer before my 8th grade year, my family and I traveled to Europe. It was a great opportunity, but I took it for granted. For example, when we were in Germany, it was rather hot, and with no AC in my family and I's Airbnb, all I could think about was getting out of Germany. Now that I look back on the experience, I realize how much I missed out on due to not being where I was, noticing where I was, and loving where I was. My experiences in Germany led me to realize the importance of mindfulness. The road to self-love begins with mindfulness. To me, mindfulness means noticing where you are, being where you are, and eventually loving where you are. And that doesn't just apply to places, but to people too. Mindfulness is being who you are and loving who you are. My journey to self-love then led me to what I like to call social disregard, or the art of not caring too much what people think of you. And I say too much because I believe that there's always a part of everybody who cares even in the slightest what people view them as. Social disregard is probably the hardest part of self-love, because so many of us seek to find our value and worth in society instead of looking within ourselves for it. Social disregard is not something that comes easily, and I haven't even mastered it, and I might not ever. But I can confidently say that the more I practiced it, the less I felt like I cared what my peers or society thought of me, as long as I was being kind to others and living by my morals. It's important to give this a true effort, as it won't just help you in the short term, but in the long term as well. My practices of mindfulness and social disregard made me feel empowered. I can now love myself, be comfortable with myself, and accept myself. And with that came great power, self-love. It ties into social disregard in that when you're not relying on society to tell you how to be, all that's left is you. However, self-love does not mean that you shouldn't care for your teachers, peers, or parents' approval, because those are important and they're how you thrive in this world. Self-love means that you don't live off of these people's opinions. Self-love means that when someone is rude to you or degrades you, you're not beat down for long because you know your true value. When we acquire self-love, society and its norms, values, and stereotypes don't have a hefty say in your life. For example, I know a big stereotype for today is what it means to be pretty. And often you see girls trying to fit that stereotype because then they feel like they'll be accepted into society. However, what these girls don't realize is that when they do this, they're changing themselves not only for a world that's so fickle, but also for a world that might not even accept them in the end. When we love ourselves, there's no need to thrive off of society's approvals because we already have our own and the people's that matter the most. Once you have a firm grasp on self-love, you can begin to love others. It's important we love ourselves before we love others, because how can we expect other people to love us if we don't even love ourselves? Plus, when we love others, we give a part of ourselves. We constantly have to be kind, patient, and gentle, and that can prove to be very draining. Loving others is an active choice one makes every single day. Loving others means allowing ourselves to rely on them, and in turn allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Often, vulnerability is coupled up with self-doubt, but loving ourselves and knowing our true value can help overpower those feelings. Amidst loving others, we must remember to love ourselves, creating a balance, or else we will be left feeling empty. It's important to remember that you are not alone. There are people that understand and will support you on your journey. Those same people are the people that matter the most. The people who won't ask you to change or be a certain way. They'll love you just for you. Community is a massive part of self-love, because despite the title, you cannot reach self-love without people. It's also important to remember that self-love is a long journey. I haven't mastered self-love, but I can probably say I hope to. And it's also important to remember that self-love, even though it's often viewed as self-absorbed or self-conceited, it's not at all. It leads you to be stronger, it makes you grow, and as well as being able to effectively rely on the most important people. Thank you.
And thank you, Moniz. And now please welcome Lainey.
Hi everyone, my name is Lainey and today I will be talking to you about Carpe Diem. So, Carpe Diem. We've heard this expression from almost every person who seemingly has their life together. Go out there and live your life. Escape this 9-to-5 routine, this cage preventing you from chasing after your dreams. And for some reason, these words always trigger me. Do you really think I don't want to run away from my math test tomorrow? Do you think I don't want to go climb Everest, eat from a sushi buffet in Japan, kiss stingrays in the Caribbean? To me, this is what Carpe Diem meant. Being free to do whatever I wanted without consequence. But that's a fever dream. Carpe Diem is not this idealistic reality one can only conjure up in the mind. The term Carpe Diem was first used by Roman poet Horace and literally means pluck the day. Pluck the day. word Carpe Diem was first used by Roman poet Horace and literally means pluck the day. Pluck the day. Before the summer, I thought this was a ridiculous expression. But this summer, when time stopped, I was stuck in this cycle of sleeping, eating, Netflix, and TikTok. I'm sure many of you can agree. And when I spent the majority of my day under my covers, stuffing everything within reach into my mouth. When I look back to my sluggish life now, I cringe. The pandemic may have paused my life, but it also gave me an opportunity. An opportunity to spend time by myself and discover my identity. As I left my bro in bed and started going on bike rides, I achieved a sense of peace I'd never felt before. Growing up, I had always been an extremely social person, hanging out with friends on the weekend, FaceTiming, texting. I never truly spent time alone. But during these pandemic bike rides of mine, as I cruised through the neighborhood, the warm summer air caressing my face, with only the sound of the bicycle chains filling the air, I stopped thinking. I was at peace. This was my Carpe Diem. Knowing who I was, valuing my time, and welcoming all the world has to offer. Carpe Diem is not this great grand concept that only a few spiritual people can achieve in their lifetime. Carpe Diem, at its core, is the simplest thing in life. Now I ask you, what is your Carpe Diem? Your Carpe Diem will not look like mine. Your Carpe Diem may be watching that show you've always wanted to watch but never got to. Calling up a friend you've been meaning to call for some time now. Trying out a new restaurant for dinner. How can you live your life to the fullest without taking a second for granted? Live in every second of your life, not living in the future, waiting for something more. Thank you.
Thank you, lady. And now please welcome Caitlin.
Hi, my name is Caitlin, and today I'll be giving a talk on self-stigma surrounding mental health. You are not alone. It's okay to need help. Have you ever been told that? Because I have, but that didn't mean I believed it. For some reason, I felt like I was the only person struggling, the only person who needed to get help. Everyone else had it under control, and I was the only one who didn't. One day, I was sitting in my therapist's waiting room, just on my phone per usual. It's a small room, so every time someone walks in, I look up. Usually, it's someone older than me, and occasionally it's someone from what I guess was a different high school. And on this day, I looked up and saw someone I knew. Now, we weren't that close, but for some reason, I was too scared to meet their eyes. I feared it would be awkward or weird, so we sat across from each other and never said a single word. After my appointment, I realized that seeing this person meant the statement, "You are not alone," is actually true. There are people just like me who need to see a therapist. And that got me thinking about the stigma surrounding mental health. Stigma has been defined as a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. Now, we hear about this topic a lot, but mostly in regards to what other people think, or about the majority's opinion. However, we don't hear much about self-stigma. Self-stigma has been defined as the process in which a person becomes aware of public stigma, agrees with those stereotypes, and internalizes them by applying them to themselves. Stigma makes people think you're weak if you need help, if you need to go see someone for your mental health. Lack of education and information makes people think that you can just snap out of it and be happy. If we don't educate ourselves about mental health, it leads us to, if we don't continue to educate ourselves about mental health, it leads us to not learn about what causes it, how to approach it, and what to do about it. For example, if I asked you to name illnesses, how long would it take for you to name a mental health illness? The truth is, we all have mental health and we all have physical health. We just need to learn about both instead of prioritizing one over the other. The majority of people's mental health declined over the pandemic. In 2020, 12.19% of youth had a major depressive episode. That number rose by 99,000 from 2019. Currently, this number has jumped to 13.2% alone. As a matter of fact, Texas is ranked 30th out of the 50 states. This means that Texas has a high prevalence of mental illness but a low access rate to care. This is probably because services are not easily accessible. It's also because of self-stigma and judgments. Now let's get to the facts. 1 in 5 teens struggle with their mental health. Now I'm going to put this into a Cooper class perspective. My sophomore class is about 120 people. This means that up to 24 could be struggling. To make it even smaller, it could be 3 in a class of 16. The thing is, I never would have guessed it. Many of the people I know put up a front and say they're happy 24/7, but that's unrealistic, almost impossible. This creates a stigma in itself and leads to worsening mental health. Now, I was curious about why people thought. As I did more research, I learned that a lot of people didn't know much about mental health, yet they still had lots of opinions on it. So I asked Active Minds about a survey I conducted with students. This is one of the questions. It was, how difficult would it be for you to ask for help if you thought you were experiencing a mental health problem? It led that for almost 30% of them, it would be either very difficult or extremely difficult to ask for help. The second question is, who would you talk to first if you thought you were experiencing a mental health problem? For almost 50% of the students, they talked to a friend first, yet only 38% would talk to a parent. Now, I'm no stranger to self-stigma. I thought that I was the only one struggling. I was the only person who needed help. I was frustrated that I couldn't just deal with it on my own. But the thing is, that if we remember that self-stigma is not only a societal problem, but an individual one too, this can lead to more people getting the services they need. There isn't shame in asking for help, and you are not alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Caitlin. And finally, for the last speaker today, please welcome Carson.
Hi, my name is Carson Smith, and when I was 6 years old, my family and I drove down to Galveston for the afternoon. And as a little 6-year-old, I was beyond excited. My father rented a fancy little hatchback and had the roof down for the entire ride. As we drove along the sea line, a black truck drove up next to us. The young man in the driver's seat rolled down the window to reveal that there were indeed 3 people in the car. And all of them at once, as if it was rehearsed, yelled, "Go home," and used the N-word in sync. Looking back on this now, at the age of 16, I can't count how many times I've been referred to as a racial slur or I've been discriminated against because of how I outwardly look and not because of how I act. That day in Galveston, we were seen as nothing more but a bunch of black people infiltrating on their turf. They saw us not for who we are, but what hatred and ignorance has villainized us to be. And looking back on this event now, the only question I have regarding it even is, what do our words do to our psyches, and where do they come from? A couple of years ago, or actually last year, it was like forever with the pandemic, I was in a literature and language foundations class, and we dwelled on the fact of how words can change with time regarding their popularity or even their meaning. To hone it in, the N-word actually comes from the enslavement of Africans, or the modern day ancestors of African Americans. The word hones in on the idea that black people are not human beings, that we are instead animals, beasts of burden, something that can be bought, sold, shipped over a boat, basically have no rights. So I would assume that most people would think that this word isn't exactly a word that we should keep in our vocabulary. But in the United States, this word has become almost something different. It's created a new branch from its origin and has become the word that's oftentimes used in modern media. The branch has gained more acceptance, per se, in recent years through youth culture, whether it be through comedy or even stand-up comedy or, of course, song lyrics. And it's becoming the new commodification for bro or friend. Within pop culture, some people think that this word can be almost diffused through Black people claiming it, potentially claiming or taking away the own poison of our own fruition. However, most continue to view the word as highly offensive and harmful, because the word is strictly linked to the violence and brutality on Black psyches and its derogatory aspersions cast upon Black people. The word puts Black people in a box and doesn't let them grow as human beings. It takes away their humanity. And it only lets us live with what the word entails. Regardless of how much we try to innovate this word, we cannot change its blood-soaked history. The N-word can't be just easily changed in regards to its meaning or anything really similarly to the word cookies, meaning both the treat and files that are created from a website. You cannot change or overwrite history because otherwise we're doomed to repeat it, and that goes for both our language and our patterns as human beings. This topic relates to how, when we were all younger, our parents told us not to call people names like stupid or dumb or anything like that. And if you went to Cooper, you were taught daily to treat others the way you want to be treated, whether it be over the news, our old principal, or just with each other. I bring this up because a couple years ago, I was a counselor in a summer camp, and of course I had to deal with little children. And oftentimes, kids need that little reminder just to, treat others the way you want to be treated. Don't push that kid off the slide. They're going to hurt themselves. Don't call somebody else stupid. You wouldn't like it. And I bring this up because during one of my very long shifts, I remember a little girl came up to me and she said that she had learned something from me. And I wrote that quote down, and years later I still have it. She told me that it's important to be kind because your differences should add value to the classroom. And it isn't a reason to make somebody feel bad. And that we need to be kind and loving because it's what we expect back. I mention this because that little 8-year-old girl, who I have never seen in almost 5 years now, reminded me of myself when I was younger. When I was 6, I pleaded the golden rule like it was my religion. I believed in that more than Santa Claus or the Tooth Fairy. And that experience in Galveston definitely tested my idea of kindness, because I couldn't fathom the idea that somebody was being mean to me because I hadn't done anything to them. Therefore, I bring this up to say this. Well, that experience was a pool of millions of experiences I've had. It stuck with me because it challenged my kindness. It challenged the importance of kindness and why I continue to be kind regardless of what I do. Growing up, I definitely saw kindness as almost a commodification, something that I could just hand out freely. But after that experience, I noticed how much kindness has a value in our society, and how without kindness, we can't function as human beings. We can't see each other eye to eye. We can't get things done. We can't continue on with the progression of our livelihoods. And so I bring this up to simply say this, as just a reminder, really, because many of us already know it, to treat others the way you wish to be treated, because you expect it back. Whether you believe in karma and the universe and how things have an opposite reaction, treat others the way you want to be treating yourself. And whether that be you treating yourself kinder or treating somebody that you particularly don't like with a little bit more respect, because you will want it back. So as I conclude, I simply want to say this. Remember what the meaning is of our words per se. Where did they come from? Don't be afraid to almost dive into what you're saying, because maybe you could be wrong. Maybe there could be something even grander about your message. Remember to be kind to yourself, because you deserve it, and be kind to others. And most importantly, remember that your words have a strong magnitude in everybody else's psyches. And most importantly, to treat others the way you wish to be treated. Thank you.
So that concludes our TED Ed events for this evening. Thank you everyone for coming today, and please give our speaker another round of applause.
Before we finish, please, I I just want to recognize the president of the club, who's been a member of the club for a number of years, and she is about to graduate, Danielle Pham. And just to put in perspective the difficulty of the club this year, today is the first time the whole year that I have met in person 3 of the presenters today. So it's been a big challenge, and I couldn't be more proud of the 7 students who presented today. Thank you so much, and let's go celebrate. Thank you.